Aegidienberg is a district of Bad Honnef in the Rhein-Sieg-Kreis, North Rhine-Westphalia, Germany. It consists of 13 villages and is located east of the Siebengebirge range in the Niederwesterwald foothills. Until 1969, Aegidienberg was an independent municipality in the former district of Sie. The name refers to Saint Aegidius, the patron saint of the local Catholic parish church, until the 16th century. The locality was known as Hunferode Honnefer Rott. Population 7,089. Geography. The district of Aegidienberg encompasses the parts of Bad Honnef located east of the Honnefer forest, in other words east of the Siebengebirge. In geographic terms, the area forms part of the Aspach Plateau in the foothills of the Niederwesterwald. The various parts of the district are distributed across hills which all lie within the broader boundary of the Siebengebirge Nature Park. The Siebengebirge itself, with its peaks up to 400 meters in height, separates Aegidienberg from Bad Honnef, which is about 5 kilometers away in the Rhine Valley. Aegidienberg is located at an average altitude approximately 200 meters above Bad Honnef. The two are linked by Landstrasse 144 through the 6 kilometers long Schmelz Valley. Within Aegidienberg are two small lakes, Lake Himberg in the west and Lake Daxberg in the east. Both are former basalt quarries, which were worked until after the Second World War. Two streams which are sources of the Pleissbach, the Lodgebach and the Quirenbach, rise in the area and run through it. The Kochenbach is a tributary of the Quirenbach. Amongst the hills within the district of Aegidienberg are the Himberg, the Huperichsberg, the Markhavel, and the Daxberg, the last being the highest point in the district. The main village of Aegidienberg, on the eponymous hill, is at 287 meters altitude. Within the district are two contiguous forest areas, the Aegidienberg forest to the east and the Vogelsbitzer to the west of the A3 Autobahn. At the eastern extremity of the district, part of the Judenbach gliding area and nature reserve lies within Aegidienberg. The district of Aegidienberg includes 13 localities: Aegidienberg, Brunsberg, Erfroth, Himberg, Hohe, Hovel, Neuken, Orscheid, Rietscheid, Rottbitzer, Siefenhofen, Wintersberg and Wuscheid. The Rottlandhof farm is within the municipality of Rhein-Breitbach, but portions of it lie within the territory of Aegidienberg and thus of Bad Honnef. The district is bordered to the northwest by Edinbach and to the north and northeast by the Oberhau, both sections of the city of Königswinter, and to the east and south by Windhagen and Rhein-Breitbach, both of which are in Rhineland-Palatinate. History, governance and economy. Since the early Middle Ages, a 948 charter of Archbishop Wilfrid of Cologne established the territorial boundaries of the Priory of Oberpleiss and included within it what is now the district of Aegidienberg. These boundaries have persisted to the present day as town boundaries and to the south and east district and state boundaries. There is no information for the time about habitation. It is thought that there were isolated farms and charcoal-making operations in the area. Settlement by people from Bad Honnef implied by the first recorded place name in the area, Hunferode, can only refer to the villages of Himberg, Hovel and Siefenhofen at the bottom of the Schmelz Valley. In view of the marginal agricultural value of the loamy soil, the origins of the inhabited areas in the remainder of today's Aegidienberg, particularly in the east, probably lie in settlement via the valley of the Pleissbach or the roads through the hills. Until the extinction of the line around 970, the counts of the Au-el-Gau exercised secular overlordship in the area. They were succeeded by the Counts Palatine of the Rhine. After the construction of Lauenburg Castle in the second half of the 12th century, the area came under its control and from 1484 to 1808 formed part of the Amt Lauenburg, a fief of the county of Berg. The first recorded mention, which may refer only to the village of Aegidienberg, later known as der Kirch, is dated the 6th of January 1345 and is of Hunferode. This is followed by a mention of Hunferode dated the 5th of January 1349. The name Aegidienberg is presumed to have displaced this name since the 16th century. Saint Giles, known in Germany as Aegidius, was venerated beginning at the end of the Middle Ages as one of the 14 holy helpers and as a patron saint of livestock. A 1506 charter von wegen der Bergischen Pastorien mentions a priest called Hermanus, whose church was located where the chapel of St. Servatius now stands, near Himberg. According to the Urkundegangsbuch des Fürstentums Aegidienberg had the status of a separate parish since the introduction of the new Jülichburg court system in 1555. Under this new arrangement, Aegidienberg lost the independent court with 7 lay judges which it had previously had, instead sending 2 judges to the newly formed court of Honnef. By the mid-18th century at the latest, 8 local jurisdictions had developed, which lasted until the dissolution of the Duchy of Berg in 1806. Brunsberg, Himberg, Hohe, Hovel, Orscheid, Rietscheid, Siefenhoven and Wuscheid. The inhabitants worked the poor clay soil of Aegidienberg either as smallholders or as tenant farmers. Before the invention of artificial fertilizers, the fields were good for almost nothing except the cultivation of barley and oats, which were the staple foods of the local people in the Middle Ages. Livestock cultivation was later added, and at the beginning of the modern age the local diet was enriched with potatoes, which gave the community the speciality, rivkuj, which to this day are an indispensable part of any public event. The inhabitants shared rights to the woodland of the Honnefer Mark between Aegidienberg and Bad Honnef, now called the Honnefer Forest, including among other things the rights to let the pigs forage for mast, to gather wood for fuel and fencing, and to use fallen twigs for animal bedding. Woodland farmers had sticks available to them for their animals, but only the nobility had the right to cut timber. Furthermore, Aegidienberg had fixed obligations under the tithe system of the Amt Lauenburg. 120, later 200, malters of oats had to be paid to various officials. The residents also had to cut the wood for the Lauenburg gallows, which stood in the area of what is now Lohfelder Strasse in Honnef, maintain it, and mow the grass at the castle farm. By the end of the 15th century at the latest, the people of Aegidienberg were required to grind all the corn at the Quirnbach mill, which was located within the parish. Ores of various base metals were being mined in the Siebengebirge area as early as the Middle Ages, primarily for the production of copper, zinc and lead. In addition to the work in the mines themselves, their constant need for charcoal led to there being many charcoal producers in the region. A copper mine called Goschilf was located in Nijken, and in Brunsberg there were mines called Flora, Epizachus and Emma Sophie, where zinc and copper ores were mined until early in 1906. The heaps of tailings from the mines can still be seen on the slope of the Lodgebach, the valley. With declining prices for the metals, the mines in the Siebengebirge area gradually closed down. Basalt is still quarried in the immediate area of Aegidienberg. The basalt quarries on the Daxberg and to Himberg had railway connections to the Broll Valley Railway, which had a wide-ranging network extending as far as Asbach, Bürl, Siegberg and Waldbrau. The quarry operators underrode the branch lines they used for transporting the basalt. Connecting to a passenger line was discussed a number of times but never never carried out. Both of the quarries in Aegidienberg ceased operation around the 1960s, and today the water-filled pits are used for swimming and other recreation. Like many other quarries in the region, Prussia and German Empire, beginning in 1806, as part of the Amt Lauenburg, Aegidienberg belonged to the Napoleonic Grand Duchy of Berg. At the end of 1808, new administrative structures modelled on those of France were introduced, cantons and mairies. The parish of Aegidienberg was assigned to the mairie and canton of Königswinter together with Honnef, Königswinter-Nittenbach. However, this only became fully functional early in 1809. Beginning in December 1813, the mairie became a Bürgermeisterei, the equivalent German term, in the Provisional General Government of Berg under the Kingdom of Prussia. The Congress of Vienna in 1815 assigned the Rhineland to Prussia, and the Bürgermeisterei of Königswinter then became a conventional Prussian local government entity within the newly formed district of Siebengebirge. In 1825, from 1822 on, this was part of the Prussian Rhine province. On 1 July 1846, Aegidienberg acquired a local council, replacing the district administration made up of lay judges. Honnefer and Königswinter subsequently acquired their own town councils, leaving Aegidienberg and Nittenbach in the Bürgermeisterei of Königswinter land, which existed until 1969, being renamed Amt Königswinter land in 1927. The municipality of Aegidienberg consisted in 1885 of 13 settlements with 366 residences and 327 households. The settlements were the village of Aegidienberg, Brunsberg, Erfroth, Himberg, Hohe, Hovel, Nyken, Orscheid, Rietscheid, Rottbitzer, Siefenhoven, Wintersberg and Wallerscheid. There were a total of 1,528 inhabitants, of whom 751 were male and 777 female. The independent Catholic parish had 1,523 members, and there were in addition 5 Protestants, for whom the Honnef parish was responsible. The municipality had a total area of 1,896 hectares, 690 hectares was arable land, 171 hectares pasture and 925 hectares woodland. Around 1855, a road was built connecting Aegidienberg to Honnef. This was extended to Flammersfeld by way of Asbach, and later to Altenkirchen. In 1862, roads were built to Wallerscheid and Orscheid connecting to what is today Landstrasse 247. On the 10th of January 1898, on a suggestion from Friedrich Wilhelm Raiffeisen, approximately 50 residents founded the Aegidienberger Spa und Allerhenskesenverein. This cooperative made it possible to extend the water supply beginning in 1902, and from 1908 gave support to the Automobilgesellschaft, whose aim was to create a bus connection with Bad Honnef and Königswinter. On Whitsunday, the 12th of July 1905, a large fire in Orscheid, caused by children who were presumably playing, destroyed 13 buildings. In 1912, the first gymnastics club, Germania, was founded. When the First World War began in 1914, many men were called up for military service, including all the teachers. Many events were held to promote war bonds. The Loan Association lost reserves totaling 13,000 room to the war bonds. The longer the war lasted, the more urgent was the need for raw materials. Children, especially, were required to collect these: paper, glass, tin foil, and also large quantities of foliage to feed the war horses. Leaves were plucked from the trees and sent either fresh or dried to the collection point at Siebengebirge. They were dried in every possible place in homes. Copper fittings and every imaginable household object were requisitioned in numerous metal collections. Even the church bells were melted down for the armaments industry. In November 1923, violent armed confrontations which claimed some lives took place, especially in Himburg and Hoville, between separatists of the Rhenish Republic and those who opposed them. A monument in Hoville and graves in the cemetery commemorate the Siebengebirge insurrection, which is also known as the Battle of Aegidienberg. Beginning in 1925, local craft workshops built a friary for the Franciscan Sisters of St. Joseph of Valkenburg and After its dedication in 1926, the sisters performed various charitable works in the area, including operating a children's home and training girls in domestic skills. Third Reich, World War II. Starting in 1937, the construction of the Reichsautobahn changed the face of the environment considerably. The surveying and construction of the first four-lane motorway in the area took place over several years before the segment through Aegidienberg opened in September 1939. The work included excavations and embankments up to 20 meters in depth and height, and the construction of a 7-arched bridge across a valley and 3 underpasses. Loss of land to the motorway rendered many local farms no longer profitable, in addition to which many landowners were left with small and scattered holdings. Land consolidation was begun but could not be completed because of World War II. The Nazis employed approximately 600 Soviet prisoners of war as forced laborers in the local basalt quarries. As the war drew to a close, shortly before the arrival of the advancing U.S. forces, these people were rounded up in the Giershausen Hall and transported further into the interior of Germany. At the end of the war, fierce fighting took place in the area. After the Americans had crossed the Rhine at Remagen on the 7th of March 1945, Aegidienberg came under heavy American artillery fire on the following days. German forces had dug in here and in turn were heavily shelling the area around Remagen. On the 13th of March, especially, numerous soldiers died on both sides. Unusually, a short ceasefire was agreed so that the dead could be recovered. On the 16th of March, the center of Aegidienberg came under heavy fire and 11 civilians died in the ruins of the convent. The nuns had been denied permission to hoist a white flag with a red cross in order to protect themselves and the approximately 60 children and refugees who were with them there. In addition, there was still a radio vehicle located as a command post in the monastery courtyard, which drew enemy fire like a magnet. That afternoon, carpet bombing of the main part of the settlement by the U.S. Air Force was averted at the last moment through negotiations, and approximately 150 German soldiers surrendered, while others decided to fight on. After its occupation by American forces on the 17th of March, Aegidienberg was then subjected by German artillery to several days of so-called and intended destruction fire. Panzer Brigade 106 Feldherrnhull and scattered elements of other units were dug in at Orscheid and Wuscheid and shelled every population center between Brunsberg and Rottbitzer. Severe damage and in some cases total destruction of all public buildings and a large number of residences and businesses resulted. In Aegidienberg, the fighting was over on the 1st of April, Easter Sunday. In Orscheid, Wuscheid and Rottbitzer, fighting continued for several more days, with the military situation changing several times. Traces of the fighting are still to be seen in the area. There are many craters in the surrounding woods made by U.S. shells of all calibers, plus at Wood-It one made by the explosion when a German munitions cart was blown up on the 10th of March 1945 during the retreat. Since the end of the war in the first years after the war, robberies occurred in the area that caused several deaths and have never been explained. Not until the early 1950s were all the war dead identified and disposed of in a dignified manner. The American dead were transported back to the United States. The remainder were buried in the Soldiers' Cemetery at Aegidienberg. Approximately 40 of the dead could not be identified. War damage to buildings was temporarily repaired. The school was only reopened with the permission of the Allied occupation authorities. In 1946, the Catholic Church was repaired in stages which lasted into the 1960s. Large amounts of unexploded ordnance in the area constituted a serious danger to life for many years, and there were occasional accidents resulting in injury and death. The land consolidation project, which had become urgently needed in 1937, was resumed in 1948 and completed in 1953. Approximately 13,000 agricultural parcels were consolidated to approximately 1,600, consisting of 2,345 hectares of arable cropland, grassland, woodland, water, roads and farmsteads, in the district of Aegidienberg and small parts of Oberpleiss. From July 1949 to July 1950, the part of Aegidienberg west of the Autobahn was part of the Bonn Enclave, a special territory surrounding the provisional capital of the Federal Republic of Germany, which was under the control of the Allied High Commission. In 1955, the then district road opened connecting Aegidienberg and Aegidienberg, and in the same year a new chapel of St. Mary was dedicated at the foot of the Dachsberg. On the 4th of February 1961, the new local Protestant church was dedicated. Since then it has been called the Friedenskirche. The TTV Aegidienberg Sports Club was founded soon after the end of the war, but disbanded in 1952 for financial reasons. Early in 1958, the Fußballverein Sportfreund Aegidienberg 1958 was launched, which now has other sports sections in addition to several football teams and is the largest club in Aegidienberg. In 1967, Aegidienberg had 3,504 residents, of whom 225 were employed in agriculture and forestry, 519 in manufacturing and 351 in services. 564 commuted out of the district and 54 into it. 4 industrial enterprises employed 163 people. Public accommodations consisted of a school, a sports ground, a kindergarten and a library. Under the Bonn Law of 10 June 1969, Aegidienberg became part of Bad Honnef on 1 August 1969. Previously, there had been proposals to combine Aegidienberg with the mountain districts of Wittenberg, Heisterbach-Erott, Oberpleiss and Stahldorf. It retains its former municipal borders. The Gladbeck hostage crisis came to its violent end on the A3 in Hovel on 18 August 1988 with the death of an 18-year-old woman. Since 2009 a memorial has marked the spot. Post and buses. Aegidienberg initially belonged to the rural section of the Königswinter Postal Division. In 1854 it was transferred to the Honnef Division. The first post box was installed the same year at the school. After the completion in 1859 of the provincial road between Honnef and Flammersfeld, the following year passenger postal service in post coaches was instituted on the segment between Asbach and Honnef via Aegidienberg. This was the first direct connection between Aegidienberg and the Rhine Valley. Initially the coaches stopped at inns in Hamburg and Benutzer. In 1870, as a result of the opening of the railway on the right bank of the Rhine, this passenger service was restricted to Asbach, Honnef, no longer continuing from Honnef to Königswinter, and ran twice a day. In 1888, Hamburg became the first part of the district to have its own contract post office. At the beginning of 1901, droschkies were introduced for passenger service, and beginning in 1909 were replaced with post buses, which ran 3 to 4 times a day between Aegidienberg and Königswinter via Honnef. For this purpose, a called Automobile Society was founded in Aegidienberg, which took over the transport service until 1920. From 1921 on, it was provided by the National Postal Service, the Reichspost. In the 1920s and 1930s, the route changed several times, with the bus sometimes running between Aegidienberg and Rhein-Breitbach. When service resumed in 1945 after the Second World War, it ran between Honnef and Aegidienberg. In December 1948 it was extended to Windhagen, and in 1950 again to Asbach. The village of Aegidienberg itself only received its own postal annex in 1953. Former coat of arms. The design of the coat of arms for the former municipality of Aegidienberg was suggested in the early 1960s by Franz Hermann Kemp, a teacher and local history expert living in Salhof, another district of Bad Honnef. It was finally realized in conformity with the rules of heraldry by Konrad Schäfer, a graphic designer in Neuskirchen. At the bottom, the coat of arms shows 3 green peaks in the Siebengebirge, the Lowenberg, Lorberg, and Grosser Elberg. On the middle one of these is superimposed the red and silver checked arms of the Amt Lowenberg, to whose governmental and judicial sphere Aegidienberg belonged for as long as it was in existence. Above that, the symbol of Aegidienberg, the Romanesque tower of Saint Aegidius's church, is depicted in silver on a red ground. The coat of arms was approved by the District Council in its 44th session on the 4th of November 1963 and certified by the Interior Minister of the State of North Rhine-Westphalia on the 16th of July 1965. It is still used by local organizations. Population growth. Aegidienberg grew rapidly after the Second World War. About half of the population growth in Bad Honnef after 1969 has occurred in Aegidienberg. The following table shows the number of residents on various dates, economy and infrastructure. The A3 Autobahn crosses the district from northwest to southeast for 5,240 meters. North of Aegidienberg, it crosses the Lodgebach on a bridge 160 meters long, half of which lies within the Ittenbach district of Königswinter. In the eastern part of Aegidienberg is the Bad Honnef-Linz motorway exit, which forms the basis of the district's good traffic infrastructure, especially in the village of Rott. It has led since the year 2000 to extensive commercial and industrial development on the Vogelsbitzer-Zilskreis commercial estate, to the south of what was already present on the Heidweg. An additional commercial estate on the Dachsberg was inaugurated in 2009. The first project was inaugurated there in early 2013. In addition, by 2005 a second commercial area had developed in Rott with, among other services, a building supplies center, several discount shops and filling stations. The Cologne-Frankfurt high-speed rail line for the Intercity Express, which opened late in 2002, runs through the district parallel to the A3, with 3 tunnels and 2 bridges, including from north to south the Lodgebach Valley Bridge. 173 meters. The Aegidienberg tunnel under the central section of the district, 1,240 meters. The Kochenbach Valley Bridge, 150 meters, and the Rott tunnel under the motorway exit, 990 meters. The section of track crossing the hillside fields of the Cluse farm was originally laid on the surface but later lowered into a tunnel or hard-floored cutting 200 meters long. The closest ice station, Siebengebirge, is in Siebengebirge, the administrative center of the Rhein-Sieg-Kreis. The Schmelztalstrasse connects Aegidienberg to the lowland portion of Bad Honnef. A large amount of the traffic on this road is through traffic to the A3. Landstrasse 143, which begins on the border of the district below Rott, connects Aegidienberg with Oberpleist to the north. It crosses the A3 between Hovel and Brunsberg on a stone bridge built in 1938, the so-called Westerwalder. This is one of the few remaining stone bridges from the construction of the Reichsautobahn system, and is an artistic landmark. The district has its own brand of beer, Gillienberger, from the local dialect version of Aegidienberg, Gillienberg. There is also a breed of horse called Aegidienberger. They are bred by the local Feldman stud farm. Like the Icelandic horse, the Aegidienberger is a gated horse. Public facilities. Despite incorporation into Bad Honnef, Aegidienberg has retained a certain independence. It is recognized in the latest North Rhine-Westphalian district law as having a special status within the Rhein-Sieg-Kreis, and for that reason the village of Aegidienberg has a 15-member district committee empowered to take decisions concerning purely local matters. This meets in a building in the Aegidiusplatz in the center of the village, which also houses a branch office of the Bad Honnef town administration, a citizens' advice bureau and a reporting station of the Bonn police, in addition to 5 kindergartens and daycare centers in various parts of the district, 2 in the village of Aegidienberg, 2 in Hohe and 1 in Orscheid. There is a town Grundschule, the Theodor Weinschule in Aegidienberg. Plans to establish a comprehensive school for the entire mountain area of the Siebengebirge have so far been unsuccessful. The Catholic and Protestant parishes also each maintain a public library, and the Catholics offer 1 kindergarten and the Protestants 2. Aegidienberg has a sports center in Rott on the south side of the Himberg. Since 2010 it has had artificial turf.